Welcome to this week's episode of Thursday Thoughts. I'm Jeff Taro, Program Director at Fenton Fitness and Athletic Center, Genesee County's premier training facility. So this week I just want to talk a little bit about, this is something that I see in our facility a little bit, but not as much, but I see it a lot on Instagram pages, on Facebook posts. I see it, even when going to different training conferences the last couple years, going to the Perform Better Summit down in Chicago, Illinois. I've seen it, in different individuals there. So, and what that is what I'm going to call non-functional functional training, or it's almost, in our facility is known in the area as, a functional training facility, and that's what we sort of pride ourselves on and market ourselves as is, training in a way that's going to help you move and feel better and function better, in day-to-day life. And so I guess, first of all, that's what I sort of, we need some definitions as far as what is functional training, what does that mean, what does that look like. So, this, to me, functional training is something that is going to have carryover and help you function better. I know you're not supposed to use the word in a definition, but I think that's really the best way to say it is, it's got to be something that's going to actually make you, better at a given task. So for most people, that's just day-to-day living. That's, helping you carry the groceries from the car to the house, carry your children, play games with your children, go up and down stairs, get out of a chair, get down and up and off the floor. So those are pretty functional things for most people. If you're an athlete, if you're a power lifter, that's going to be things that are going to make you squat better, bench better, deadlift better. An Olympic lifter, that's going to be, or a weight lifter, that's going to be things that are going to help you clean and jerk and snatch better. If you're an athlete in any other, various sport, then it's going to be things that are going to make you better at the skills and tasks required in your sport. So that's sort of the definition I'm using. So when we're talking about, functional training, a lot of people, that's trendy now and that's cool, and people are catching on to that's what people want or seem to want, so people are going over the top to try to make things seem functional or more functional, I guess, if you will. And this manifests in a lot of different ways, but, you'll see things like, people doing, push-ups with their feet elevated on a yoga ball or physio ball, and they might even have their feet on a physio ball and their hands in a TRX trainer, so there's a very large amount of instability. And that seems to be the way that I most often see this sort of manifested is in people creating as much instability as possible to do a real basic exercise. And there's a number of problems that I think, what ends up being the limiting factor then is no longer your prime movers, and those are supposed to be the muscles that are your limiting factors. It shouldn't be the small stabilizing muscles of a joint, so it shouldn't be your rotator cuffs, it shouldn't be your, the muscles around your hip, the gluteus medius, the smaller glute muscles, in your adductors. It should be large, big prime movers. That's what should be, your limiting factor when you're doing exercise. When balance is the primary thing that is limiting you, then it's not a good exercise. You want to pick exercises that you can progressively get stronger on. Ideally, where there's some degree of balance and stability required, as opposed to just using machines. You want to have to balance and stabilize a little bit, but it should not be a greater stabilization requirement than what you would encounter in day-to-day life. So unless you're going to be walking around on half inflated discs, or you're going to be supporting yourselves on very unstable surfaces in real life, which nobody is, there's no reason to do that you need that in your training, outside of, maybe in a physical therapy setting. I'm not a therapist, so I'm not going to speak to that. But that'd be the only spot where maybe, where you're trying to, rehab an injury, where you might want to use some of those modalities. But otherwise, I think there's not really a good rationale to utilize, to have those things in place in your program. I see the ultimate sandbag people are real big with their what they call DVRT, or dynamic variable resistance training. And they have all these claims that are not backed up by evidence, by the literature. Claiming that you get the variability, the shifting of the weight is so much superior to a barbell or a dumbbell or a kettlebell, depending on what exercises you're doing or talking about. And we use sandbags, in our training, in our facility, in a lot of our team training workouts, but they're to complement primary movements. those things, the limiting factor is going to be the awkwardness of the sandbag, not your strength. That should not be the limiting factor. If you're using it as a conditioning circuit, great. If you're using it for really high repetitions, great. If you're using it, sort of as a finisher at the end of your workout, great. But it should not be the primary movement of your exercise. And oftentimes, when I've gone to some of these, to these summits, like in Chicago the last couple summers, a lot of the people, it seems, that are real big proponents of this functional training, that really, in my opinion, is very non-functional and actually just does not have the best carryover. Oftentimes, what you see with them is they're not really that strong. They're not. You looking at them, you wouldn't know that they work out or strength train. They might look fit, like they're not overweight or obese, but they don't have any appreciable amount of muscle mass. They are not strong. So in closing, really, everything you do, it should not be balance that's the limiting factor. It should not be the awkwardness of the implement you're using. You should just be able to get strong, be on your 2 feet or on your back or down on your chest. And the limiting factor should just be the fact that you're not strong enough to do the movement anymore, not that the contraption is too difficult. So the primary movements in our programs always need to be things that you can progressively get stronger on, and then you can always add weight to. If a sandbag, you're not going to get a 300, 400 pound sandbag. It's impractical. You're not going to get 250, 300, 350 pound kettlebell. It's impractical. Barbells are going to be the most loadable objects, and that should be at the base of most people's program if they're healthy enough and fit enough to use them. And if they're not, then they need to work on getting strong enough so that they or getting healthy enough so that they can use those objects if at all possible. Some baseline strength measurements, for men, they should be able to squat double their body weight. They should be able to deadlift 2.5 times their body weight. They should be able to bench press, 1.5 times their body weight. They should be able to press their body weight overhead. If they can't do those things, doing, at least 10 consecutive full range of motion dead hang pull-ups. If they can't do those things, you're not strong enough. You need to get stronger. For women, it's going to look like a double body weight deadlift, at least 1.5 time body weight squat, maybe a 75% body weight bench press, maybe 50% body weight pressed overhead, and doing 5 consecutive dead hang pull-ups. If you can't do those things, then don't do the fluffy, the quote-unquote functional stuff. Get stronger with primary basic movements. Use the other stuff in a rehab setting or as a finisher or in a conditioning circuit. And that is Thursday's Thoughts. Thanks for listening.